Hi, my name is Tori, and I've been an Oner active athlete for a little over a year now. Today we're going to be catching up and talking about the importance of movement and recovery. For the past few months, I have been in physical therapy because I've been having issues with my pelvic floor, and I feel like it's really important to highlight things like this because it doesn't always have to be something traumatic that happens to someone for you to go in and need consistent checkup. Issues can arise with anyone. That's why it's important to have more preventative measures. Exercise frequently, and I take care of myself, which made it easier for me to recognize the signs that something was possibly wrong. If you followed my story with Oner Active, I've been with them for a little over a year now, but in about a 5-year time span, I've had 15 different surgeries, and I've learned a lot about recovery, rebuilding myself, and most importantly, taking care of myself. I've learned that the small things inherently affect the bigger things, so sometimes you have to scratch everything that you know and rebuild. So over this past year, I've learned to become more in tune with my body and listen to the signs and signals that it's given me. But also, I think no one really talks about the mental setbacks that you have in a rebuilding process. You're at a point where you know where you could be, but physically, you're not able to be there. The most important in this entire time of rebuilding has been my mindset. I know that I can get back to the things that I did before. It just takes time. And again, detail by detail, bit by bit, you have to rebuild. I've had to become more in sync with my body than I ever have. And it's really shown me how much I can accomplish physically through where my mind goes. We're gonna be going into our workout now, and today it's gonna be an emphasis on our lower body. I'll also be walking you guys through some tips for this workout. One of the biggest things I want you to keep in mind is building back up to the weight. Before I had surgery, I could deadlift 315 with absolutely no problem. After surgery, I couldn't even walk, but it's all about pacing yourself. If you lifted the weight before, you can keep in your mind that you can get back to that, but it takes time. There is danger in jumping higher in weight before your body is ready for it, and you're honestly just gonna stunt your progress when it comes to recovery. So be mindful. You can always build up the weight. With weight, you can always add more, you can always take some off. Just keep that in mind. Okay, so I'm starting the workout with barbell back squats. I already did a warm-up set with the bar. Some of the biggest cues that I have when it comes to squat, people have issues with their feet placing and where they want to put the bar on their back. You can either do a high bar squat or a low bar squat. It all depends on your preference. You have your traps to help assist you in this process, but just think of creating a shelf no matter what, engaging your lats because it's gonna help with your entire core to be able to brace for the weight. In terms of your feet, some people think of taking a wider stance, some people think of taking a closer stance. A good rule of thumb is to just go shoulder width apart, make sure your toes are pointed slightly outward, and whatever feels comfortable for you, your body will eventually fall into that motion. We're gonna get started with a hack squat variation. Over here you see we have a traditional hack squat machine, but you can kind of rig these up sometimes to do more focus on your hamstring and your glutes, almost like an isolated RDL so that you completely have to focus on using your legs to push you back up. I think one of the biggest issues that I see when people do leg days is that they feel it in so many other places. You're supposed to be having a mind-muscle connection. You need to be consciously thinking about the set of muscles that you're working, or else you're just going through the motions, honestly. Sorry for the lights flickering, it's just the fan above us in the area right now. So next up, we're gonna be doing leg press, and the main focus here is going to be our breathing. Whenever you do movements that cause you to be in a more contracted position where you're a little bit more scrunched up or squeezing, it's important to really focus on your breathing. Even though you might feel like you're getting tight, your muscles still need room to expand because they are actually working the hardest. So I have a few cues and points for breathing during the leg press, and we're gonna get into them. So one of the biggest things I want you to think about is, instead of breathing out, focus on breathing down. You have an entire pelvic floor. It's a whole web of muscles that expand and contract depending on what you do. Anything from yawning to eating to lifting to birthing children if you're a woman. Your pelvic floor is so important because it supports a lot of your other organs. So when you think about us doing a leg press, we're in a compressed position, so it can cause you to shorten your breath rather than expanding them. So instead of focusing on breathing out, I want you to think about breathing down. So again, for the foot placement for leg press, just a general rule of thumb, shoulder width apart, nothing too crazy. The main focus is that I'm not pushing through my balls of my feet, I'm pushing through my heels to engage my legs even more. Next up, we're gonna do seated hamstring curl. And I know there's this really big debate on whether a lying hamstring curl is better or a seated hamstring curl, but technically a seated hamstring curl is a little bit better because it doesn't allow you to raise your hips up and cheat, which means it includes all of your posterior chain at all times. So for a seated hamstring curl, some important points is your placement in the chair. As you can see, this is not touching the crevice of my knee. If you leave a space like this, you're gonna inevitably put more pressure on your ACL, your MCL, and your PCL, which is something that you don't want to do. This is not a movement for your knees. This is a movement for your hamstring and your glute. So my knees are closer to the edge of the seat. I'm gonna make sure that the pad is above my ankle, but again, not too high up because then it's just gonna be cheating the movement. When I come down on the lever, gonna make sure that there's a tight hold, that it's locked into place. So literally the only thing that can move this machine is my legs. It's not me swinging, it's not me moving forward, it's not me pushing myself up to cause more pressure on this machine. It's just my hamstring and my glute. So I'm here, I'm down, then I'm back up. Two bonus movements that we want to include, because we know everyone does not have access to a gym, is reverse lunges and sumo squats. Both are great ways to focus on your glute. The main thing when it comes to movements like this is driving through your heel. When it comes to reverse squat, I don't want you to think about your back leg as a kickstand and it's bringing you up. All of the force should be driven through the main leg that you're focusing on. If you're pushing through your heel, you should feel it in your glute. On a sumo squat, it's similar. So your feet wider than shoulder width apart, toes pointing outward, you're driving through your heels. So all the pressure in the constant movement is running through your hamstring and your glutes. So you're just here. If you need help with a reverse lunge, there's nothing wrong with it. Just hold your hand on a bench, a wall, anything that you need. Weight in the opposite hand, and you're gonna reverse, and I'm driving through my heel. Reverse, driving through your heel. So one of the last tips I want to leave you guys with is how you're breathing. I know we talked about breathing down rather than breathing out, but when to breathe and how to breathe is also just important. When you're breathing out, you take a deep breath in, you take a deep breath out. You're exerting force as you're breathing out. So it is always good to breathe out on the hardest point of your movement. So for example, On the barbell back squat, when you're coming up, when you're bringing the weight up, that's the hardest part of the movement. That's when you need to be letting your breath out. A lot of people, when they do movements, they tend to take a big breath at the top, hold it, and hold it until they get back again at the top. And that's not what you're supposed to do. Breathe out and use that force to help you through the rest of the movement. You're pushing through a wall, essentially. Think of it in that way. So I'm gonna do sumos next. And as I'm going down, I'm gonna be breathing in, but as I'm coming up, I'm gonna be breathing out. So I'm here, feet outside of shoulder width apart, toes pointed out. My knees are not going over my toes. I'm going straight and down in a line. So I'm gonna get the weight. As I'm going down, I'm breathing in. As I'm coming up, I'm breathing out. In, out. And again, I'm pushing through my heels so that all of the force that I feel is exerted back into my glutes. All right, you guys, that is gonna be the end of this workout. I hope you learned something from this leg day walkthrough. I hope that the tips helped you, and please remember your breathing and your bracing. You can check the description box to see the full workout with reps and sets. Please don't forget to thumbs up this video and subscribe. Also, please follow Oner Active on Instagram, and you can follow me at It's Tori Mariah. See you in the next video.